So today's video is going to be a bumper, super long, two-part video in which I look at my time spent on Gran Turismo 7, specifically my quest to unlock the gold hard work pays off trophy for getting gold times in all 50 license tests, as this was one of the toughest things I faced when going for the platinum. So the story begins on March 7th, 2022, as this was the first day where I decided to tackle the license tests, and to my surprise I made short work of the initial National B license tests, getting gold in all 10 of them. And as I moved on to the National A tests that day, I felt like this was going to be a doable trophy that would put up a little bit of resistance, but I would get it eventually. And as I got to the National A tests, it was here where I started to see some signs that I was probably wrong at this point, as they were starting to already get a bit tricky. Like this one here, where all you pretty much have to do is drive in a straight line, go around the corner, and then drive in another straight line and do it in 22.3 seconds for the gold time. But my word, I just struggled with this. My fucking god, all it was a right turn and I just couldn't keep the speed up. And that was one of the things that I noticed about these license tests, is that it really does teach you the fundamentals of just driving and how to approach corners. You know, it's not always the same. You know, you can't always just go full speed round a bend. You know, sometimes you might want to, you know, brake beforehand, turn, and then when you're coming out of the corner, accelerate. Maybe sometimes you want to just tap the accelerate and go around. Maybe other times you just need to let the car roll around the corner and not brake or accelerate. And these early license tests, they all are set up to sort of show you how to do those sort of corners, and if you take that on board, you can then use that on any sort of corner in the game. Just like driving, how you approach a junction, you can then do those steps for any junction in any road on any, you know, place you're going to. So yeah, that was one of the first little hurdles I had to overcome, just learning how to drive those cars. And eventually I got the gold in that time, and we're sort of skipping ahead now to A9, which is the national tests. This is the second to last one in that group of 10, and again this was another sort of tricky one for me, to be honest. You know, I could get round the course, but I couldn't quite get that 17.1 second or under for the gold time, because I was just finding myself just losing time on certain corners, like this last corner. You know, the ghost car for the time would always get ahead of me at that point and just zap round the corner. I could never really figure out why at that point. You know, sometimes I would be ahead of the car on this bend, and then I would just take it wide, or, you know, I would take it at low speed, and then the worst things you see is the ghost car just coming into the screen and going past you right at the end. And like, luckily on this one, I was still ahead of the time, and I managed to get gold. But yeah, it's all about just taking corners properly and effectively and keeping that speed going. So A10 was the final one of the National A, which, looking back now, I would definitely say the national ones are the beginner easy ones. You know, they shouldn't really give you a lot of trouble. You might have to do, like, you know, 5 or so attempts just to get a feel for it and then get them. You know, it wasn't like I was spending hours or days on these. It was more like, you know, 10, maybe 20 minutes on some, and others I would just fly through and get them pretty much straight away. They were kind of almost all the way through, even in like internationals and the super licenses. They were often hit and miss. You know, I would do them in order, so I would go on number 1 first, and I wouldn't go on to the next one if I could help it until I got the gold. But some of them I would really struggle with, then I would do like 2 or 3 in a row pretty much straight away, and then I would hit another roadblock and be on one for like ages. So I didn't feel like they were kind of balanced out right and ordered right, because some of them are a lot harder than others. So I would definitely say to you, if you do hit a brick wall, don't feel like it's the end of the world. Oftentimes you're better off just taking a break, coming back later. Like, there's multiple times throughout this where I was spending hours on it, and I would get a really good time that was really close to the gold, and I think, yes, I can do it. And then I'd retry, and I would straight away on the very next attempt, I would balls it up on the very first corner, or I'd make stupid mistakes, and then I'd probably have like a 30-minute session where I'm just constantly failing and not even getting close to that time. Again, and that would start to really piss me off. Then I'd be like, what the fuck's going on here? I can do this. But I kept with it, or I took a break for a bit and come back a bit later, and eventually I got the golds. So now I've reached the International B, and this one here in like the desert, it's literally just going round this really long bend. Like, it seems so simple, but at the time this took me way too many attempts than it probably should have. So here it's where you learn to brake before the corner, and then it sort of encourages you to sort of roll around and maybe just tap, accelerate to try and keep a tight sort of cornering. And this was like sort of the first few times I would have to implement this sort of strategy in cornering. And again, it's very tricky to get the time, because you've got to time it right, because if you accelerate too early, you're going to go wide and you might end up drifting out, or you might cut in too much and go on the dirt and get disqualified. And the computer seems to get the line perfect, and he gets that big build up of speed to come out of the corner. So that one took a little bit of time, but again, it's just learning those fundamentals. And with that one done, I could then move on to my next one, happy and ready for the next challenge, to then quickly get disappointed because I get stuck at another brick wall. It's like, especially later on, for me, it was like, I think it's harder than the Wipeout times, if anyone's ever played those, the Beaton's Eco trophies, because on that one, it's literally just one track, and you can go around it again and again in the same session, and you can just keep playing it and keep lapping until you get good at it, and you've only got that one mountain to climb, whereas in these, you can only do, especially on the later ones where it is a full lap, you can only do one lap, and then it kicks you out of that session, you have to go back in and try again. And that makes it harder, because you've got that disconnect between every lap, because you're waiting around for it to load again and go back in and count down and start you off, and that kind of disrupts your flow. And the fact that you've got a big mountain to climb with one race, one time, you finally do that, but then you realise you've still got another 30 odd mountains left to climb before you get the gold trophy. So yeah, it can be very disheartening at times. But yeah, let's talk about some of these now. So this one, oh my god, this one here, there's a specific point where you have to brake loads. I think you go under a little bridge, and you've got to speed to the finish line, and my word, trying to get that line perfect was just really tough. I would either hit the barrier beforehand on the left trying to cut in, or I would hit the barrier on the right hand side of the corner and not quite get the line through right. And this one was just an absolute pain, because you're now in a faster car, and because you're going through a city, you've got the walls either side, so you've got the slightest tap on some of these walls and you'll get disqualified. So here it is, look, you've got to brake, but stay to the left enough to keep the line and get past that little bit without turning around those corners, because you can see the blue ghost car, the computer one, he sort of just pretty much goes almost in a line. He doesn't really bend through the corners, and I failed that corner again and again and again, and this was one of the first ones where I started to feel like some of these gold license test times were a bit bullshit. And now we've headed into the 8th of March 2022, which is my second day of the trophy, and I've already got 23 of the 50 gold times achieved. So I'm doing well at that point. I thought after that first day I was like a bit pissed off because of that one that I didn't get the time on, but again I had 23 golds already, and I thought, yes, this is going to be this is going to be doable. You know, I can get this done. So I'm coming back into the license test centre on a brand new day. I'm fresh and I'm ready to try and give this International B41 another go. And yeah, it's tough. You can watch the Ghost demonstration. It will tell you how to do it. But when you're in that race and you're trying to do it and get that time right, it could go wrong really easily. Like some of them, you've got to be at the right speed and you've got to be at the right position and you've got to nudge the sticks just enough or turn your steering wheel enough. And the slightest mishap can just ruin your line, and you'll find you're coming out and you're hitting the sides, or you've gone through it a bit too slow. So that one was definitely a bit of a pain in the arse, to be honest. But the taking of a break and coming back fresh the next day, I think definitely helped me with that one. And I managed to get it near enough fairly quickly after restarting on that evening. So now we're on about 9 o'clock at night on that day, and we're heading into International B. And I think this was one of the first notable rally ones, and I don't think I'd even experienced rally in the campaign yet. So this was like, oh my fucking god, it just drifts and slides all over the shop. And as you can see, I hit the walls and all sorts, and this takes a bit of getting used to, because it's a lot different from the road cars and everything that you've been driving on tarmac from all the other tests at that point. So it is a bit jarring the first time you go through them, but it's just about, you know, going at speed, letting go of accelerator, and sort of gliding around the corners, and just trying to slowly chip away at your times. Because for me, a lot of the times, every license test it had the same sort of flow. So I would start one, and then it would be a case of first getting used to the car, how it handles, how it can take corners, the speeds at which you can go safely without drifting out. And then it would be like getting used to the track, or the part of the track that the test was on, and how I can go around that. And then it would be a case of getting better and better at each segment. And then the fourth and final stage would be putting all of that together and then slowly chipping away at maybe the last second or the last hundredths of a second that was left to make me reach the gold times. And that's what I did with all of them, really. It was like restarting every single time with that process. And sometimes I would go through it within 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and other times it could be hours, or if I was really unlucky, it could be days before I would get it nailed down. So yeah, after the rally one, we're back on International B8, so we're getting close to the end of those International B license tests now, and this was another one on a road track, and it just had a few awkward sort of corners where you would have to keep up the speed, and you can see the ghost cars was always like overtaking me at these points, because I wasn't brave enough to commit to fully accelerating around them, but I still did enough. One of the tips I would say is to have the ghost car be offset by about 0.2 seconds, so that it's always in front of you, because I use that as my sort of racing line, as well as all the braking assist lines and everything, so I could see what he was doing and then try and judge it. Unfortunately, you can't really see his brake lights when he brakes. It would have been nice if you could have seen that, but yeah, that definitely helped. And then as you get more and more used to it, you can bring the offset down and eventually have it so it's level with you, and then you're racing against that. Because then you know if you're close to that ghost car and you're crossing the finish line, you're doing well enough to hopefully get the time. International B9 now. So this was another tricky one, because it introduced the sort of uneven terrain kind of thing. So you would have bits where you're driving uphill, and then as you can see when we go around the corner, you then have a bit where you're going downhill, so it was getting used to that, and the car itself wasn't very good, and you can see I balls it up there. It's some of these cars that you get are just really fucking shit, like deliberately crap. They just don't handle very well, they don't turn very well, and it can just be a right pain. Like this one's simple in concept. You're just going up a hill, going round a corner, down the hill, going round a left corner to the finish line. So it can be really frustrating when you see that that's all it is. It's literally two bends, downhill, uphill, and then a straight, and that's it. But trying to get it in that time, it can be really tight and really frustrating. But yeah, you can see that was just a couple of attempts, and I did get it. So that was like one where, yeah, that probably took me, 10 minutes or so to get that one done. And it's always nice when you get those, because it's like, yes, I'm making more progress. So now we're moving on to International A, and this is where it definitely gets tough. Once we get through these, we're on to the S rank. So I would rate these as like the hard, the start of the hard set of tests. Because yeah, some of these just took a long time to just get them right. And what you'll find as well is some of the ones in here, like this one, they're parts of a track that you are eventually going to go on to have to do a whole lap in for an S rank test. So it is, in a way, a good practice of you learning parts of that track that you're eventually going to have to do a whole lap on. So yeah, in that respect, it is good. But yes, some of these were just an absolute ball ache to try and do, and trying to keep up with the ghost and knowing when you have to like tap on those corners there and when you can hold it down. And then this bend here now, luckily we don't have to do it in this test, but when we do the lap, this was a bit where I would just constantly fail. But yeah, that's a problem for later. So yeah, look, we're on 8th of March, it's getting to nearly midnight now, and I'm probably coming to the end of this day's journey. I don't think I'll get another one. But I'm going to give it a go, and it's another dirt one, so International A3. So again, this is jarring. After spending so much time doing the ones on the road, these can be really tricky, especially with these bullshit jumps, because you can often have a perfect run, and then you'll go over one of these bumps, and your car will end up upside down, or facing the other way, or you'll end up bouncing too much and you'll end up hitting the side or disqualifying yourself, and that can be really frustrating, because a lot of these jumps are just, they feel bullshit because they feel out of your control, and it almost looks like the car glitches out every time it jumps up in the air. I don't know what it is, but it just never looks right to me. So this one, yeah, it's just about managing the speed and getting used to the drifts and just constant practicing of it, just going around again and again, and eventually, I don't know what happens, like with me, it was like I can sometimes get stuck into like a specific pattern with a track. Like I'll do the same thing every time, and I'll wonder why I'm not getting any quicker, and then one time I might brake a bit later on a corner, and I'll find out, oh look, I can fly around it now. Even though the assist lines and the braking spots, which you can see in red on the track, tell you to brake really early, sometimes you don't have to do it where it tells you to. You can go past it, maybe sometimes even go about halfway into it before you start to brake, and you can find that makes all the difference. So if you do have all the assist lines on, just be aware that you don't have to follow them to the T. You can experiment a bit on the corners. And I will also state, we're now on 9th of March, so at this point it's the third day, and I'm now on 33 of the 50 gold times achieved. So yeah, I'm definitely still feeling positive about this at that point. At certain points I will hit roadblocks and think I can't get it, but at this stage I was still fairly confident that it's something I could do, because I will say I'm not the greatest racing game player. I prefer, Team Sonic Racing, Mario Karts, those sort of games, the Burnout games, more than a real driving simulator that this claims to be. So International A4 is the next one that's up. And I'd also like to point out that for every time when I would get one that I was just stuck on for ages, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it, and I looked at the demonstration that you can watch, the little video that tells you when you start the test, and if that didn't really help me, I would just go on YouTube and look at some times on there. People have got golds by like 5 seconds quicker than the gold time, things like that. Look at their ones, how they go through corners, because sometimes that can help, because I might be doing a corner like there where it's not very effective at all, and a YouTube video will show me the better way of taking it, and it'll shave those few tenths or seconds off of the time that I need to be able to get the gold. So it was definitely a helping hand. But yeah, you are going to face times where it just becomes heartbreaking to to get close to a time and just miss out on gold by like tenths of a second, for me that is much more devastating than, you know, missing out by like 3 whole seconds. You know, I would rather fail a test with like 10 seconds off the time than fail it with like tenths of a second off a time, because then it's just like, oh my god, you know. And then you start to think, if only on that one corner I didn't tap the brake twice, I had just tapped it once, I might have got the gold. And it's like, oh god. And when you're so close to getting it, and then you miss out, and then you've got that pressure on yourself then, because you think, I can do this, I've just got a really good time. And then, like I said earlier, you spend the next half an hour or an hour of your gameplay trying to get this time again, but you're nowhere near it, and it's very disheartening, and it can be just, you know, heartbreaking to get those really close calls on certain times. But yeah, definitely check out YouTube videos of people going around. I have left a few of the gold times that I do eventually achieve in these videos to just show you the successful runs, but I'm not really breaking it down in how to take the corners and how to do it effectively. But you can watch it, and it might help you and give you some ideas. So again, yeah, I would also say take off some of the assists as well. You can find like the braking one, and, you know, the ones that limit your speed, you might want to take those off. Traction control, either at 0 or 5, tended to be the best to have. But yeah, you don't want the computer, you know, braking for you, because it will just slow you down way too much, and it will cost you too many seconds. So you have got to try and get used to driving without the assists, so that you are fully in control. I never did any of the tests with manual gears, though, I will say that. I just relied on the game to change them for me, and sometimes I did feel like, fuck, you know, if I was doing manual gears, I might have been able to shift up and get a bit faster, like on some of these like straights when I'm coming out of the bend. But for the most part, I didn't feel like that held me back, and I thought, like, having to manually do the gears myself, it would make me make more mistakes, because I'd be constantly trying to do them. So yeah, what are we on now? We are now almost halfway through International A. We've still got a ways to go, and then once we get to the Super License, that's where the trophy really begins. This is just all the essentially practice, even though some of these are really tough. So this one here, look, you can see there's like a sort of snake bend in the middle, but for the most part, it's a straight line, and we've got to do it in 28.2 seconds, and we're in a fast car now. And I think, I'm not sure what I preferred really, whether it was the ones that had fast cars or the ones that had slow cars. Probably the faster ones, to be fair, because it was more rapid and you could get restarted quicker. Whenever it was a slow one, it would actually be like a tank trying to turn some of them. So yeah, I enjoyed the faster ones more. But yeah, this one, he just bombs it down there, look, and I'm nowhere near the time. So yeah, I just restart, keep going. Thankfully, the times for loading and everything on PlayStation 5's version of the game are fast, so it's not like you're waiting around for ages. So that's definitely a good thing. But yeah, you can see as well the real what do I say the word the real harshness sometimes of the disqualifications, whether it be hitting the wall or going off the track. Like sometimes on certain corners and certain tests you can take a fair chunk of it off, and then other ones you'll find that the car can only just slightly be touching the curb or slightly go over that white line, and you get disqualified, and sometimes it feels really bullshit. And then there's ones where like the tracks have like these little curb lumps on some of the corners, and it's like a single one, and you'll find that you always fucking hit it no matter what. And it's like, why is that fucking there? It's deliberately there to fuck you over. But I'm guessing it's there on the real world track. But yeah, it's like, geez, why is that there? Why can't it be an inch to the left? I wouldn't have hit it. But yeah, sometimes the penalties do feel a bit much. I think these would have been a lot easier if you I'm not saying you could just completely skip corners, but if the penalty for just slightly tapping a corner edge or a wall or whatever wasn't so strict, because yeah, it's like, fuck's sake, it's nothing worse than losing a good run to just some bullshit like that where you've slightly gone off, especially when you're following the ghost car and you can see that they're pretty much at the same bit as you. You might just be like a pixel over. It's like, fuck's sake, game, really? So yeah. So this next run now is the one where I get the gold time. So you can see I'm bombing it straight down, and then we get to that corner, and I don't brake right away. I sort of just tap it round with the accelerator, just on and off the accelerator to keep my speed going. I'm not braking on that second corner. And I think I might have just tapped it on the third, and then I put a full sort of brake on for that last one there, and then I just bomb it straight, try and just keep tight with those little last bends to get over the finish line. And I did the time by a fair bit, you know, it was quite comfortable time in the end. But yeah, it's just, it is tough. Some of these are tough, and you know, I did a couple of them with the steering wheel. But the majority of them I've done with the DualSense PS5 pad, because I feel like the wheel has a lot of the force feedback, so in some of the faster supercars that you drive, you're fighting against the wheel as well, and that just made it harder. I felt like I could brake tighter and more effectively with the pad, and I wasn't expecting that. I thought it'd be a lot easier with the wheel, but for me, I was much more comfortable with the pad. So if you haven't got a wheel, don't despair, you can still do these with the pad for sure. So here is one of the rain tracks, and these are an absolute pain in the ass, because your car will just slip and slide all over the place if you're too aggressive with the accelerate. So this is ones where you will learn how to take corners, and it will put you in good stead for the final S10 test, which is on a rain and dry track. But yeah, it's all about like tapping around corners, rolling it with the accelerate, and doing braking only when you're sort of going straight in a straight line, because if you brake as you're going around a corner and you're sort of angled, you might end up fucking up. And whatever you do, don't try not to drive in the puddles or on the edge like I'm doing there, especially when there's like the red and white curbs, because your wheels will just spin out. But yeah, tapping is the key. Tapping of the accelerator is the key on these wet ones. Some of the early ones though aren't too bad to get golds in, but yeah, you've got to be aware of these, because you will face a big test with them later on. So yeah, we're nearly the end now, and we're on the 10th of March, which is the 4th day of me going just solid for this trophy, and I've got 36 of the 50 gold times, and it was here where I unlocked the Rain Royalty Trophy, because originally it was glitched, I think. So thankfully there's not like a specific license test category for just pure rain races, so you haven't got to like do 10 of them. It's just for various ones that have a wet track, and I think I just got it popped automatically in that one, which didn't even have a wet surface. I don't think it was just because I had already done all the required tracks tests, so it just gave it me then. But yeah, we're on 11th of March, and it's almost 8 PM, and I've got 2 other ones to do, I think, at this point. International B10, which was really tough because of this fucking corner here before the tunnel. I think it's Trial Mountain, I think. I'd always hit that barrier or not get enough speed around it. And I think I had another couple to do. Yeah, I have. Look, there we go. So we're doing International 8 and 9, which I think is a cool track. So here, actually, yeah, Deep Forest Raceway. This was like the first sort of sport race that you could do. So I played it like 50 times doing the trophy. So I was always quite confident when I would get a test on this track, because it was my favourite one that I'd played the most. So yeah, again, this was one where for these bends here, you can sort of tap brake and then hold brake for that one to get around it a bit quicker. But yeah, it's quite tricky with some of these corners. The first bend you want to brake heavily. The second one you just want to sort of let go and glide round. But yeah, there's a lot of areas where you can easily fail and lose a lot of time on these sections of the track. And particularly the sort of, I think it's with this one, the final bend. So here we go, we've got this little bit where we tap brake and then accelerate fully round, and then this corner here you want to brake, but then as you're turning in you want to start to fully accelerate so you can get a lot of speed to come out of this corner on, so you can get to this straight and the finish line much faster. And that would probably be where I was failing this time every single attempt if I hadn't crashed into the walls beforehand, kind of thing. You know, I could be doing really well and then I would lose the time because of that final bend, because I'd either brake too much and slow the car right down, or I'd take the corner really wide, or I'd end up going off the track or disqualifying myself, like you see there, look. So yeah, that was one where I really had to learn how to do corners effectively with this one. So it was like braking and then accelerating in as I'm coming out of the bend to try and keep the speed, because the ghost car always does it. And I was like, how the fuck is this ghost car doing that? This is bullshit. He's got some nitro, some bollocks. I was like, I can't do this. This is fucking bollocks. And then I'd put my ghost car on there to try and see how I did it, if I would like get a decent run at it. And then whenever I'm at the back of the two ghost cars, it was just depressing. It was like, fuck's sake. You know, because I'd wasted all that time. Well, you know, less than a minute, but still, that time getting there. So yeah, you can see I've got a lot of fails on this last bend. It's so frustrating. Just this final fucking bend, I couldn't keep the speed. And then eventually, you know, I'd do a good one and I'd be really close and I'd be like, fuck's sake, what more can I do? And yet it just took a lot of practice to nail that sort of corner. And, you know, I would chip away at it, I'd get closer and closer, and then I'd start to become more consistent at getting, like, you know, a time relatively, you know, close and on point to that goal time, and eventually I would get it. And I think it's this one here, because I'm showing the whole of the track. So you can see I'm at the back now on this final bend, but then I take it well, and I still didn't get the silver. Well, I'm going to leave that in there. That can be a kind of blooper. But here we go. I think it's this one, maybe. So I'm ahead of my ghost car now because I took the corner a bit better. Then he sneaks up on me and steals it, and I still don't get it. But look how close I am to that goal at that point. So again, with this one, look, I'm in front of my ghost, but behind the computer ghost time. I'm stealing it. I'm going to steal it from him, and I'm ahead. But look at that, 45. And I needed 200, not 245. That one was fucking so close, and when it's that close, it's definitely heartbreaking. And here we go, I think this is the one now, look. So here we go, on that last bend, I'm at the back. Oh no, I had to go wide. Okay, it's not that one. I really should stop saying it. Is this the one? Maybe this is the one. I don't know. I should really check my editing before I comment. So yeah, look, that one I was nowhere near, and I got frustrated there. You could see I sort of spun out at the end in frustration. I was probably swearing quite a lot then. You know, I've got the clammy hands because I'm sweating loads, been at it for ages, and I'm just starting to get pissed off with it now. Because I can just see no light at the end of the tunnel, no way to get through it. Like here, look, I get ahead of them in that tunnel, and then I probably got panicked a bit, maybe braked too much, or took the corner too wide, and then you start to see them get ahead of you, and it's like, oh, fuck's sake. So yeah, sometimes it can be frustrating to have the ghosts on. So if it is getting to you, just take them off and drive it out of them for a bit. But here we go, look, we take the bend. I'm quite close to my ghost time, but I'm sort of sneaking it ahead now because I'm accelerating a bit more, and bang, there we go. Well, that was the one, gold time. So as long as you are close to that computer ghost time, you should still be within a good chance to get it, especially if you've offset it by like 0.2 seconds or whatever. So always keep going, even if you think that lap is not going very well. There can still be chances in other corners and other parts of that circuit to catch up, because the computer isn't always like perfect. International B10 is the test you're seeing on screen now, and this is one I skipped over to just jump straight into the International A's. So I'm sort of coming back to this one a bit later because it was just a tricky one that I couldn't quite get. You can see my best time at this point is 42.127, and the gold time is 42 dead on. And the problem I had with it was this bit here. So after coming out of the first tunnel, you have to make a really tight left corner. And you have to take that really tight and fast to keep up your speed to be able to bomb it down through this tunnel downhill at high speed to get to the finish line. Because if you don't take that corner well, you're gonna eat up seconds, and you're gonna lose so much time that by the time you get to the finish line, you're gonna be like 43, 44, maybe even 45 seconds if you take that badly. And I feel like when I was doing this one, like, obviously I would have times where I was failing all the other bits before it, but a lot of the times I would have really good runs through the first parts of that track, taking some of those corners really well and keeping right on that ghost time's arse. And then I would get to this final bend and I would just balls it up. Like, there was a few times where I just floored it this one time, and I was like really close to the edge. I think it's the ghost time you're seeing there. Like, and I took it so fucking tight and at speed, and I absolutely bombed it down to the bottom. But I didn't get the time because it was a bad run originally, but I just stayed in it to get the experience of the whole circuit. And I thought to myself, if I would have took all the other bits better, I would have had the time then. So I had to constantly replay this bit again and again, and you can see here, look, the 42 seconds every time, but I'm getting closer and closer, and it's that 42.127, and I'm so close now. And yeah, it was really frustrating because it all hinged on that one bend. Like this bit here, I could do the start, braking in the tunnel, keeping it tight, accelerating halfway through at that yellow marker, not hitting the wall that you saw there, bombing it through, getting around all these other tight ass corners, and keeping up with that ghost time. But then when I get through that tunnel, you sort of have to like stay on the right through that first tunnel, tap the brake to sort of swing the car, so you can go into this little bit here on the left that's hashed out on the road, which you would think would disqualify you, but it doesn't. So you sort of brake, swing in, and keep it nice and tight and keep the acceleration. But here I don't, and I sort of, you can see there that I've lost a second or so there, and both ghost times are just ahead of me. And yeah, I just lost my shit at that point. I lost my rag with it. I'm like, fuck's sake. So yeah, I think we've moved on to another day now. So it's the 12th of March, and yeah, I'm back on this International B10, and we're trying it again. But yeah, it's really frustrating when ones are like that, where it all hinges on a specific point of the track. And I always wished it was like, why couldn't it be the very first corner? So if I can get through that first bit, I know I'm in with a chance. You know, there's nothing worse than having one where it just hinges on the last bit of the section of the track or the lap. You know, and you end up spending, you know, sometimes it can be 30 seconds, sometimes it can be, you know, almost 2 minutes of doing a perfect run just to balls it up on that awkward bastard bit at the very end. And this definitely was one of them. It was just so disappointing sometimes to be bombing it down that track at the very end and to not get over that finish line in time. But eventually, with a lot of practice there, I managed to conquer the International B10, and that meant that I'd done all 10 now in International B. I've got full ones in National A and B, and the International B is now done, and I'm getting my supercar now for the all golds in that particular license test. So it leaves me with a couple more in International A to do, and then the entire S1s to do. So yeah, you can see now, quite pleased with myself here. It's 9:50 on the 12th of March. So yeah, you can tell I got up early that morning, and I straight away after my breakfast I went on it, determined to do it, and I did. So yeah, now I've got the International A 8 and 10 to get the gold times in. So I've got a silver in the 8 and a bronze in the International A10. So this is one that a lot of people say is one of the harder ones, and it was definitely tricky, don't get me wrong, because a lot of times you can spin out on corners, you can take them too fast. So yeah, it was one that I thought, fuck that, I'll leave that. I need to do 8 first before I do 10. So we're jumping back to 8, and we'll talk more about 10 later. So yeah, this one with this fucking left turn right at the beginning. Yeah, man, this was a pain in the ass. This is probably one of the worst corners you've got to take in the entire test, because you're going downhill and you got to brake so much, and you'll always see that fucking ghost car just speed off as if he has got nitros, or if he didn't just have to take that awkward corner. And I could never keep up with this son of a bitch, and he would always fly through, and I would always be short of the gold time. And no matter what I did, I could never really get the handle of this corner. You can see here, like, I tried to brake really quickly at the start to then try and take it really tight, and I'd just go all over the place, or I'd swing it wide and go off the track on the other side, the right hand side of the track. And yeah, it was really awkward. And when I did feel like I took it well and I was with the ghost car, as soon as I'd have to accelerate off, they would just go far away from me, and then I just wouldn't be able to keep up, and then my ghost time would come past me and I'd just be fucking hell, let's fucking think. It would just really piss me off. Yeah, I hated this one. I hated this corner. And I would look online. I remember looking online on YouTube videos for it, and I'd watch what they do, and I think, yeah, that's simple. You know, you've got to approach the top of the hill from the left side, and then brake in a sort of straight line towards that yellow marker, and then swing it around and tap the brake. And I just couldn't do it. I could not do it. And yeah, we're on 12th of March still, and I'm still stuck here. I'm still desperately trying to figure out how the fuck I go around that corner effectively. And yeah, it was a very, very tricky one for me, and it might not be for others. You might be able to do that straight away, but yeah, I just couldn't get my head around that corner, and no matter what I did, I just couldn't seem to get the time close enough. Yeah, and even just finishing it actually was a challenge, to be fair, because I would normally get disqualified on that first corner, and then the last bend around the right, trying to keep the speed up there and not end up swinging out to hit the barrier on the left as you go on the straight. That was a pain in the arse as well. But yeah, this was not an enjoyable one, because when you look at it, it's one of those ones where it's simple, really. You know, you've got one tight corner to the left. These corners here aren't really much of a bend. You just got to follow the road, and then it's one turn to the right to the finish line. And it sounds easy, and you look at it on the map, and you think, fuck me, I can't fucking do this. This is fucking bullshit. I hate this fucking test. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this platinum now. Fuck the platinum. Fuck this trophy. I'm not going to do it anymore. That's what it was like with this. Because it was just like, what the fuck am I doing wrong here? And I mean, I have got the gold in it, obviously, but I still don't really know how I did it, what I did differently. But yeah, there you go. I got the gold there. So that was that one done. And I've just got to do the International A10 to get that entire set all gold. So yeah, this one, it's a fairly long bit of the track, to be fair, and you've got to go fast. But there are a lot of times where you don't want to be going fast, because if you do, you won't take that corner well and you'll go off the edge. So it's one of those ones where, like I said, with the cycle of a license test, you first got to learn how to handle the car. Then you got to learn the track and learn each segment. So how can I take this bend? How can I take the next bend? Can I accelerate in between? Or do I need to drift around to prepare for the next one? Do I need to brake here? Do I need to roll around this corner? Can I just tap round? How do I do it? And that's one of the ones where you've got to keep practicing this one, keep doing it again and again, to just slowly piece all of that together. And then once you have pieced it all together, you've got to get good at doing all of it in a sequence and not just in individual segments. So yeah, it can be very frustrating, but to my surprise, it didn't take me all that long to do, or at least looking back now, it didn't feel like it did. It didn't feel like I was stuck on this one for ages. And yeah, you can keep up with the ghost car quite well at times, but I would always say, if you're feeling like the car is going a bit too fast, just let go of accelerate. Don't try and desperately keep up with that ghost car at all times, because there are points where he will go further in front of you, but there are times where you can brake a bit later on certain bits, or you can roll around and sort of catch up with him a little bit. But with this one, because you're in a fast car anyway, you don't have to be right on top of him. Like, you can be a little bit away from him and still be within the gold time. But yeah, you probably will have to do this one a fair bit. But it is a sort of good taster for what lies ahead for you when you finish this one and you move on to those S1s, because it gives you a fair bit of the track, and the time is rather tight, so it's kind of preparing you really for what lies ahead, because it's only going to get harder from here. And yeah, trust me, it definitely gets harder from here. But if you could do this one, you definitely in with a good chance to be able to take on the silvers and get the S license ones, and get those done. But yeah, just be prepared to practice this one a fair bit. It's not one you're going to get in your first couple of attempts, that's for sure. But just go into it just knowing that you're just piecing everything together, you know, and eventually you gotta find that you can get to the finish line more consistent. Like the first few times I was doing this, I wasn't even getting to the end. Some of them took me a while to actually finish the thing and record my first time, and then it was a case of, okay, well, how can I take some of these corners more effectively? Okay, how can I start to, you know, and then you start to see yourself finish the thing more, and then you'll start to see yourself chipping the time down more, you know, and that's what it's all about, just the repetitiveness of it and doing it again and again, and eventually learning it and doing it. And here we go, look, you can see now I'm getting the new car because I've got gold in all of International A. So now we've done all the practice license tests, all 40 of those, and now we're ready to get on to the meat and bones of the trophy. The final 10 super license tests, which all require you to do an entire lap of a specific track. And they are all, for the most part, fairly fast supercars. There's one or two that are a bit slower and a bit more unique, but yeah, for the most part, it's a fast car. And the very first one I did, I think on the very first corner, I remember completely spinning out and losing all control of this super fast car, and I was like, oh my fucking god, I can't even keep control of the fucking car. How the fuck am I going to do this? It just seemed impossible, and I was just like, oh my god, I've got to do a whole lap, and there's 10 of these fucking things, and they're just going to get harder. And I just thought to myself, this is impossible. I ain't going to be able to do this. This is just crazy. And the thought of like having to do a whole lap. So these challenges were going to take me like 1 or 2 minutes every attempt if I got to the finish line. And that was a fearful thing as well, because it was like, okay, this is going to take a long time to nail these down. But you just have to approach them the same way you've been doing all the others, you know. First, learn the car, learn how it handles, learn what speed you can go at, learn when it starts to get a bit uncontrollable, learn how to take the corners, then start learning the track and how you can piece all of it together. Once you've got that done and you find that you can get to the end more consistently, it's then a case of, okay, well, what corners can I improve? How can I get these times down? Where can I go faster? Where can I brake better or take bends more effectively to shave off a few tenths of a second or a few seconds or whatever? And it's just piecing all that together, and bit by bit you'll get there. That's one of the things I want to say in relation to this trophy. Just don't worry, you will get there. If I can get these and these S license times, then anyone could do it, because I'm not a hardcore racing fan. You know, I don't have many racing games in my collection. You know, oftentimes, like on the dirt game, I just put that on easy and blasted through, beating all the campaign on easy, because I didn't want the hassle of doing a race and losing it at the very end, you know. So yeah, I'm not someone who's massively skilled at racing games, and I managed to do these. So if I can do it, then definitely other people out there can. Even if you face the adversity, just keep going. You will get it. And if it's getting to you too much, take a break and come back the next day fresh, or take a day off completely and come back to it afterwards, and you'll probably find you end up doing it in a couple of attempts. But yeah, the biggest challenge with these S1s is just getting a completed lapping consistently to be able to start to bring that time down, because a lot of times you might go too fast and the car will just spin out and you'll fuck up on one of the corners. But yeah, it's these become solvable once you've managed to master the whole of the track and you're managing to finish it. Even if you're nowhere near the time, if you're consistently being able to get round the whole track without going off or getting disqualified, then you're going to be close to getting it then. It's just a case of then just getting better at some of the corners to be able to shave the time down and get there. So yeah, that was S1. And I will say, as soon as you get your first gold on an S license, that's a great feeling, because then you think, well, I've conquered one S license now. If I can do that one, then surely I can do all the others. So yeah, it's a great feeling when you get that first one done, because it's a great motivator for you to think, yeah, this can be done, I can do this. And that's how I felt going into the next one, even though I knew I wasn't going to get it done within the next half an hour of my gameplay. It was a feeling of, yeah, well, I did the first one, I could do the second one. And it's like, I did the second one, I could do the third, and so on. And like I said near the beginning of the video, these I don't think, for me personally, were balanced right. It wasn't like 1 is easy, 2 is harder, and 3 is harder than 2, and 4 is harder than 3. Because some of them I would do relatively quickly, and others I'd be stuck on for ages. So if you are struggling with one, don't think that the next one's going to be as hard. You might find it's easier and you get it done quicker. But yeah, ghost cars definitely help. And yeah, again, these were just a case of piecing together the tracks. Like, there was some awkward corners in this bit, like this bit here where it's like 2 in a row, quick succession, and you've got to try and snake it around. It was quite tricky. And again, you're going in a fast car now, so you're going at like 150 plus miles an hour for a lot of it. But you will find that the cars are good at braking as well, so you can, and they grip the track well as well. So like you can go at corners at speed sometimes and still be able to get around the corner. But yeah, it was more this bit here where it was like the last bit just before where the final bend and then the straight, is it? Oh no, I'm thinking of another one. But yeah, a lot of it was like just keeping speed in the corners, coming out of the corners. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you go into a corner at low speed, but you definitely need to come out of it at high speed. This was the bit here that I was thinking of. Just trying to keep a speedy route through that was tight enough to not go out of bounds, so then we could go bombing it down this straight to be able to brake here and go around this corner to get to the final sort of bit of the track, and still keeping up with the race timers on the Ghost cars. And the final bend as well was key in keeping that speed up, and that's how I managed to get the gold in that one. You could see it from that video. I was behind quite a lot at the Ghost times throughout a lot of that track, but I kept going and I eventually caught up and got ahead. And even though I was nowhere near the Ghost car for the computer, I still managed to get it done. So we're now at the 7th day of my hard work pays off journey. And yeah, 7 days, a whole week now I've spent trying to do these times, and I'm making fairly good progress. I've tried a few of them on the S rank now, and I've got gold on 2 and silver on another 2 that I just randomly played just to try them to see what they were like, because the one was my favourite track, so I wanted to see what that was like. And I managed to get silver time, and I thought, yeah, okay, that doesn't seem too bad. That was like S9, I think it was. So yeah, I'm going into this one now, trying to get my gold time. You can see on the video at this point, I've got a time that's better than the silver, but not quite the gold. But I'm very close at that point. 400ths of a second isn't too much to shave off. And yeah, that is a great motivator, but it's also a great source of frustration as well. Knowing that you've got that time, but you might not be able to get it again. It did kind of grate on me at times. But you just got to keep at it. I've said all the sort of tips that I have, really. YouTube videos, watching other people do it, learning just how to take the car around the track, how to go around each corner effectively, piecing it all together to get your time down, and taking breaks when needed. If it's starting to frustrate you, just walk away. You can always come back to it later on. But yeah, you can see here, look, on all these attempts, I'm slowly chipping it down and getting closer and closer to it. Even though I'm not closer to my best, I'm still getting it down. And sometimes it was, like I've said it before, I would get stuck in a rut of doing the same thing in every lap and not being able to get better, because I was so stuck in my ways, because I'd gone through the track that many times. I didn't know how to do them differently and get them done. So yeah, you might want to, if you're at that point with an event, look at someone else's way of going around it and seeing if you could do it quicker, or if your way was quicker, and then just adapting it where needed. So this one here, it was like these sort of corners here. You could take that. I think it was like a tap of brake or letting go, and then as you go around the corner at full speed to keep that corner really tight, you'd go to the left, but you'd be okay. And that was a bit where you needed to do that to keep up with him, because yeah, this one was frustrating, that's for sure, because it was just so close to a time. And then it was this final bend here where you need to take it with a fair bit of speed so you can go onto the straight fast. And I think that's one where I was always losing the time. And once I finally nailed that last corner, I got the gold, as you can see here. So at this point now, I've got 3 golds in the S rank. I was confident going into S4, but as soon as I started it, that confidence quickly disappeared, as this one was an absolute nightmare to do, and it was by far one of the hardest ones in the game, and it almost broke me and made me give up on this trophy and the platinum altogether. Take a note of the day where I start this. I started this one on day 7 of my challenge, and it's now the 11th day, and I still hadn't got the gold time. Look how close I was. 2 minutes, 0.045, and I was off by that much. Well, that little rather. So fucking agonizingly close, and I couldn't get this time close again for ages. This one was just an absolute horrible one to do because it's so long and there's a lot of places where you can easily fuck it up, like this bend here. You gotta tap your accelerator as you go around, and then this next corner you can cut, and then this bit here now where you go on a straight and you've sort of got to brake after the red marking on the floor, and then you got to hug the right. But if you don't do this exactly pixel perfect, you're going to slam into the left bit, or even just slightly grazing it, and then that will cause you to fail the fucking test. And at this point you want to hope that you get around 57, 56 here and keep up with the ghost car. But my word, this one was just horrible. The 2 minute time limit is really fucking tight, and it felt like the most unfair one of all of them, because this time you have to be a racing god, I feel, to get this one. This one just zapped all my enjoyment out of this, and it just made me want to give up so many times because I just couldn't, no matter what I did, I couldn't get this time down. You know, I would get up here to this next checkpoint around 33 or 34 seconds. I'd be like, yes, I've got this now. I can easily get through here. But then these last few corners, I would either just not take them a bit too slow, or I'd take them too fast and I'd end up hitting a corner. And then this very final bend, again, it's one of those ones where it all rests on this final bend and you get around this corner quickly, because if you go too quick you'll hit the wall. If you go too slow you're not going to have enough speed to build up quick enough to then get to the finish line, so you'll end up losing like 2 or 3 seconds. And eventually, after a lot of attempts, a lot of blood, sweat and tears, there was a lot of tears with this one, just hating it and wanting to give up. But eventually I did it and I got my gold time. But my word, this one was just horrible and I hated it. But yeah, I did it. So that's 4 of the golds down in the S license test. So I'm really close now to the gold times in all of them and getting the trophy. And that's where I'm going to leave the video here. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this bumper long video, especially if you made it this far. And I will see you hopefully tomorrow for this second and final part of my quest towards getting gold in all 50 license tests for the hard work pays off trophy. Cheers, see ya.